Chapter 6, Batcave and Kung Fu Fighting. Dr. Jackson stepped up to the podium at the UN General Assembly. Getting a slot to speak had been relatively easy, seeing as he was front and center in most member states' minds, considering events over the last couple of days. All of the seats before him looked full. Good morning, nation-states of Earth. The murmuring settled to complete quiet. I am Dr. Derek Jackson, a citizen of Constant Star, the primary space station of recent concern. I financed, built, and own both space stations that have all of your metaphorical panties in a bunch. I assure you all that they, nor I, pose any aggressive intent toward any of you. In fact, should you want to have a delegation, or do so yourself, transports wait to shuttle you to either or both stations for an unrestricted tour, self-guided should you want. However, should this body continue its aggressive posture toward myself, the space stations, or the newly formed nation-state, Future World, it will be to your detriment. I wish you all a very lovely day. The assembly erupted into a cacophony of discussions until, moments later, as Dr. Jackson waited to answer questions, a single gunshot shattered the cacophony to silence. The side of Dr. Jackson's head exploded outward, splattering gray matter on the green marble to the side and behind him. He crumpled to the floor. The only broadcast station carrying the speech live was C-SPAN. Connie notified the station's personnel and Future World personnel to go to emergency alert and informed each worker individually of what just happened and to keep doing what they're doing. Jay was watching the news feeds on the screen in his office on Station 2, including C-SPAN. He saw the assassination as it happened and lost all interest in the breaking news, alien invasion stories all the news agencies were proffering. Denise interrupted his shock. Dr. Jackson was just assassinated after delivering his speech to the United Nations General Assembly. Someone shot him and blew his brains out. I have standing orders to inform Jack, you, and Russell to proceed to GPS coordinates 362737.8 and 1165247.3, Furnace Creek Airport in Death Valley, if anything like this ever happens. Dr. Jackson said to get there as soon as practicable. Your executive shuttle is standing by. Jack is unavailable, and Russell says he'll be riding with you.
The Furnace Creek Airport was nothing more than a paved airstrip in the middle of the desert and a couple of metal hangars off to the side. The shuttle touched down on the helicopter pad. Jay and Russell stepped out, and Connie asked, "When do you want me to come back for you?" Russell shrugged. "No idea. I'll call." The shuttle lifted off and was out of sight in seconds. Russell pointed, "There's a village about a mile that way. I'm pretty sure I saw a diner." "Wishful thinking. I saw the same village. It's a group of campgrounds. The coordinates indicate right here, so we're staying right here." "There ain't any shade." Russell stepped into Jay's shadow and grinned, "Except I've got you." Smiling, Jay spun, grabbed Russell and hoisted him up with one hand, held him up to block the sun, and then sat him back down. "You don't even make a good umbrella." Russell pointed at the hangars. "Shade." They walked over and sat in the sand. It was still very hot, but at least the sun wasn't beating down on them. After an hour of waiting, Russell grunted, "When the sun gets behind that mountain behind us, we can walk over to the campgrounds. There's got to be a clue or something there. Maybe we should check the hangars." They walked around the hangars looking for some clue, something, anything, and found nothing. The rumble of motorcycles in the distance caught their attention. It took more than 15 minutes for them to pass the little landing strip. They passed and kept on going. Sounding a little dejected, Russell said, "All right, let's go." When they turned to walk to the road, they saw an ultralight aircraft in the aircraft tie-down lot. They looked at each other. Russell puzzled, "Where'd that come from?" "Last time I saw that, it was in the diner parking lot," Jay mused. They walked over, and Jay put his hand on the wing. "This is a Liebeck, low-speed, high-lift wing. I experimented with these 30 years ago. They work pretty well. Only mine was red, not sky blue and white." Russell walked to the front. No propeller. He saw a Post-it note on the seat. "Get in and don't touch anything." They climbed in, and as soon as they buckled their harnesses, the little craft started its rollout. Before 50 feet, they were off the ground, silently. There wasn't even the hint of the characteristic whine the shuttle engines made, and there wasn't even close to enough space for a fusion generator. They leveled out at about 20 feet above the ground, very low indeed, definitely below any radar, if there was any. There wasn't a control tower at that little landing strip, and no runway lights. From what Jay could tell, they were heading due west, or just a little south of that heading. After about 10 minutes, the terrain switched from desert sand to rocky foothills, then to solid mountainous rock. The craft stayed about 20 feet above the terrain until it made a steep climb up the mountainside and banked left into the wide mouth of a large cave, landed and taxied to the back. "Holy bat cave," quipped Jay. Russell answered, "Well, it sure isn't Patty Tar's." They were getting out when a man appeared carrying a flashlight. He was wearing a brown hooded robe that made him look like a Buddhist monk. He went to the side wall of the cave and started lowering a painted canvas like a giant window shade. It was painted to look like a wall in the cave and obviously meant to hide the ultralight aircraft. "Hi there," said Russell. "We're here—" The monk held his finger to his lips, indicating he should be quiet, and then motioned them behind the canvas as he continued lowering it. When the shield was fully down, the flashlight seemed puny in the darkness. Jay and Russell followed the fellow through a narrow crevice and down a steep flight of stairs carved in the stone. They emerged into a huge, well-lit vault where martial arts students were sparring all over the place. "Kung Fu," Russell said under his breath. The monk answered, "Wudongquan. Kung Fu is like scary spiders, always jumping around, but easy to defeat. Wudongquan is for the spirit, very peaceful except in defense, when the spirit explodes." "My apologies if I offended you. Hey, I thought we were supposed to be quiet." "The cave is the giant megaphone, hard to hide when you make noise. There are enemies looking for us. Follow me, please." "What's your name?" "Call me Buddy." "I'm Russell. He's Jay." "I know. Follow me." They entered an opening in the back of the vault and descended a long way down another set of stairs, switching back and forth for what must have been 20 stories. The landing at the bottom was the terminus for 3 halls. Buddy turned right and continued to the door at the end. He opened it into a rather large electronics lab where many people were working and Dr. Jackson was waiting. "Mr. Kwaramba, Mr. Eerily, welcome. Let's have a seat."
A mostly bald man didn't give them time to respond, but immediately led them to a table in the back of the lab. He doffed his lab coat and laid it over the back of the chair he intended to sit in. Dr. Jackson sat and said, "Tell me what you know." Russell answered, "You aren't dead." "Well, yes, it would be difficult to speak to you if I were. I'm number 36. The one that got shot was number 13. He'll survive and heal. So perhaps you mean, why the ruse? Other than futzing with the powers that be, we wanted to see how they'd react to the news, whether their strategy contained elements we hadn't anticipated. Now, you answer my question." Russell continued, "Future World has been quietly seized by the United Nations. The tourists there are oblivious, including Jack, and Connie managed to get the only shuttle left there up to Station 1. Well, you don't know much, do you? And it's no wonder. There is a news blackout in place. As of a few minutes ago, all signals from the island are down, and radio signals between the stations and island are being jammed. That will be remedied shortly. The only possible real danger is from Tenzin Rinchen, and then that's only if he's able to resist the vision from GodTech when he makes it to Station 1. And he has kidnapped Jack as planned." Jay was surprised. "The vision from the God? What's that?" "You've heard of Voice of God technology, right?" "Urban myth." "No, it's real. We developed Vision from God based on that. The target is made to see anything we project to their visual cortex. Buddy here is somewhat immune to it because of his training. Rinchen may be as well. And because of that, Buddy will accompany you back to Station 1.
It is our belief that Chao Jun-kyung, Secretary General of the UN, has activated a plan to seize Station 1, the ultimate high ground, and force all governments on Earth to bow to his will. The technology does not exist that can effectively attack the station, but the station can be the base for an attack on any and all nations on Earth, for which they have no effective defense. So Rinchen has orders to seize the station, intact if at all possible. General Kyung has seized Future World under the color of international maritime law. He claims that base is a floating island, essentially a barge, and is not flagged under any nation on Earth. He knows that isn't true. It's an actual island, the size of Jamaica. How he can possibly expect anyone to believe it's a barge is beyond me. He has had the UN reclassify it, seize it, and flag it as property of the UN, and he has started a legal action in the World Court to validate his action, and to transfer ownership of the island and orbital stations to the UN as well, and that'll take a while. Since the stations were constructed in orbit by an unregistered multinational business enterprise, he thinks he has a good argument that it falls under the jurisdiction of the United Nations. His executive secretary, Tenzin Rinchen, is handling the seizure of the island, and we believe he has Jack in custody and plans to hold her aboard the Chinese aircraft carrier Liaoning. The details on that are a bit sketchy. That ship is a joke as an aircraft carrier, but it serves a very symbolic purpose as the flagship of the UN attack force. It identifies China as the leader of that force, and as the leader of the United Nations, General Kyung wields a lot of influence in China. So, gentlemen, it's us against the world. As you can see, the situation seems to be approaching dire. Flabbergasted, Jay said, "Surely we're not defenseless." Far from it, but we must appear to be in order to show the world the treachery of the UN. We could just vaporize the transport we expect Rinchen to use to get to the station, but that would mean Jack would likely be a casualty of that. Connie's voice came into their heads. As expected, Rinchen has forced Jack to request a shuttle. "I'm sending an old cargo transport, the nearest one." That's what she requested. "So, gentlemen," smiled Dr. Jackson, 36, "the gambit begins." Buddy said, "Follow me," as he started walking out. They walked back to the landing, turned right, and followed that corridor a long way to the outside, emerging under an overhang. Buddy led them farther, about a mile, until they came to an opening into another cavern. Inside, there were many motorcycles, maybe as many as 1,000. On the other side of the parking lot, there was an opening behind an outcrop of rocks. Inside were what looked like many motorcycle gang members living it up in what was obviously a very large makeshift bar. The music stopped playing. For a moment, someone shouted, "All hail the king!" That was followed by a chorus of "Hip hip hooray!" The music resumed. Dr. Jackson waved and smiled. Buddy said, pointing his thumb toward Dr. Jackson, "He owns the bar." Dr. Jackson said, "Well, having an army on call is kind of a good thing out here." Buddy added, "And free booze helps." They walked up to the bar, and the barkeep walked over to them. The man was clearly a biker, with long, scraggly brown and gray hair and a large, scraggly beard to match. He smelled of stale beer more than the bar did. "Buddy, you want your usual?" Buddy nodded. "Unsweetened iced tea coming up."
Dr. Jackson, Jay, and Russell ordered the same. Before the tea arrived, a large hand landed on Buddy's shoulder. "They tell me you can beat any 12 men here. Beat me and I'll believe it." Buddy didn't turn. "Go practice falling down so you won't get hurt." The biker spun Buddy around. Buddy's hand moved in a flash to the guy's midsection, causing him to double over. Another flash, and his other hand moved to the side of the man's neck. The man slumped to the floor. There was a roar of laughter from the patrons in the bar. Start to finish, the entire takedown took less than 2 seconds. Buddy turned back to the bar. "He'll be all right in a minute." The drinks were delivered, and the man on the floor arose, rubbing his neck. He threw a punch at the back of Buddy's head and missed as Buddy tilted his head left, allowing the punch to pass by his ear. He grabbed the man's arm with one hand, pulling him forward while jabbing a hard elbow to the man's midsection.
The man went to the floor again. Buddy never turned around. I ask you which hospital you prefer, should you try again. He took a sip of his tea. The man didn't respond. A couple of his friends came and dragged him away. Dr. Jackson whispered to the barkeep, AJ or Kim? Kim's playing DJ. Haven't seen AJ. They took their drinks and went to an unoccupied table near the DJ station. Kim saw them and smiled. More specifically, she saw Buddy and smiled. The song she was playing, Born to be Wild by Steppenwolf, was just ending. She put on Little Deuce Coupe by the Beach Boys and sashayed over to the table and stood behind Buddy. She was a tall woman with brown skin, long black hair, and from the look of her muscles, very athletic. She leaned over to Buddy's ear and whispered, obviously the refrain from the song. Buddy blushed. Dr. Jackson interrupted. We have a job for you and AJ. Pay good? Take us to the station. Name it. Why? You've got shuttles. None available. Station's under attack. The Beach Boys' song ended. She hopped back to the stand and put on Heading Out to the Highway by Judas Priest. She came back and asked, Firefight? Maybe, but I hope not. Case of Jack Black, and if there's bullets flying, I'm on point. Plus what AJ wants. Deal. When can we leave? Finish your drinks and meet me out front. He'll be there. Kim walked away, and another girl came up to handle the DJ station. Russell asked, Why so cheap? AJ used to be a shuttle pilot like Jay. Bright guy. He actually figured out how the impulse drive works and built to one of his own. He contacted me, and I hired him to work in the lab. He used the money to build his own bird. I got him a fusion generator. He's been beholding ever since. Now he does odd jobs for me on occasion. He met Kim here, and now she's his partner and co-pilot. Her name, Kimana, is Shoshone. It means butterfly. Don't let that fool you. She might float like a butterfly, but she stings like a sledgehammer, as AJ found out one starry night. Pun intended. She's sweet on Buddy here. It seems he's the only guy she's ever met that she can fend off. Not that he's ever tried anything.
Kim was waiting for them by the worn path the bikers used to come and go from the bar. She waved to the spotter on a ridge a few hundred yards away as the group approached her. Russell asked, Where's AJ? She pointed up. He looked and immediately burst out laughing. So he's the hubbub. The craft looked like an oversized propane tank with 4 bent spikes on the bottom for landing gear. Kim walked over and confronted him. Why you laughing? That's the tic-tac. Tic-tac? You mean candy? No, darling. You're telling me you haven't seen the news about the military chasing these UFOs? No TV. Besides, all broadcast news is lies. So you're saying you haven't been chased by jet fighters? Sure, all the time, but they can't even get close. No, but they can sure take lots of videos. You're famous. The craft landed on the path and they got a better idea of how big it was. It was about the same size as a regular cargo shuttle, including the flatbed section. But there was no flatbed. It was all a smooth, white hull. One of the rounded ends lifted up and an Asian-looking man stepped out. Looking around, he asked, Ready to go? Better hurry, the cops are following me. Dr. Jackson said, I have something to do here. I'll see you later. Like a cheerleader, Kim held her arms up and to the side, forming a giant C, meaning cops, for the spotter to see. When he waved back, she joined the group, climbing into the craft. As the nose dome was closing, the roar of motorcycle engines could be heard starting up and moving toward them. AJ said, Buckle up, I might have to do some maneuvering. They felt the impulse engines kick in and the craft rise into the air. It was like a fast elevator going up. The right side view screen, nothing more than a large flat-screen monitor, showed the view outside. 2 U.S. Marshals SUVs were bouncing up the path at high speed. A half-dozen other official vehicles, with emergency lights flashing, were following fast, a good ways off. The 2 SUVs came to a stop, leaving a trail of dashed, dark marks behind them on the rocky surface.
The drivers exited quickly and pointed shotguns into the air, right at the ascending craft. AJ said nonchalantly, "Don't worry, the hull is lined with dragon scales. 50 caliber rounds can't penetrate it." Kim zoomed the camera in on the U.S. Marshals and watched 100 or more of the bikers surround the SUVs. The Marshals leveled their weapons at the bikers, looked around, and then lowered them. A moment later, one of the Marshals pointed up and then looked up. The other cops caught up to the Marshals, got out, and looked up. Kim brought the zoom back to normal, and the group looked like nothing more than a dot on the ground. AJ joked, "What is this, bogeys to the left of me, bogeys to the right of me, and here I am, stuck in the shuttle with you?" The radar on his view screen showed multiple blips closing fast. He eased the throttle forward a tad. "Let's see you do this, boys," he said to the jet fighters, as if they could hear him. The altimeter passed 100,000 feet and continued to climb. Kim typed on the console, and music started playing over the speakers. She sat back grinning when Stuck in the Middle with You by Steeler's Wheel began playing. When the song finished, AJ quipped, "Ladies and gentlemen, the seatbelt sign is now unlit. Feel free to move about the cabin. Our time to destination is 2 hours and 49 minutes, give or take. Now, would someone care to brief me on what's going on?" He tapped a few keys on his console, got up, and faced the passengers. "The island has been occupied by UN forces. Jack has been kidnapped by Tenzin Rinchen. They are en route to the station for a forced occupation, I believe. Our mission is to save the station," said Jay, matter-of-factly. "What are we up against?" "Possibly as many as 60 armed soldiers, and they have a head start of an hour or so." "Any idea on weapons?"
Buddy answered, "Rinchen is formidable and a quick thinker, very resourceful. It would be unwise to underestimate the danger." "Gotcha. We'll see when we get there." Russell added, "Jack likely gave a coded message to go into lockdown. They won't be able to dock if that's the case. That means they'll have to breach the hull, which means they've probably got spacesuits. Oh, I hope we catch them out in the open. My babies will make short work of that. Gatling guns." He was referring to the 4 Vulcan miniguns he had mounted in the belly of the craft, fore and aft. Each was capable of firing 6,000 rounds a minute and putting a round in every square inch of a football field as well as the stadium surrounding it. Kim said, "Dibs." "You got it, baby," he grinned.
These videos are time-consuming and a bit difficult to make. I would prefer if you told me now that you think they're crap. If not, then please at least hit the thumbs down button. Thank you. If you like the videos, please tell me, and tell me how to improve them. I'm just one guy, and I often get wrapped up in the technical details. I miss a lot of stuff, I'm sure. Fresh eyes see what I miss, so please tell me. At least hit the like button, and if you're so inclined, please hit the share button. Thank you.